All right. Episode 51. You thought we were going to stop at 50? No,
we don't stop.
We got so much more to talk about.
When are we starting?
We can't stop.
We started right now.
We're recording now.
It's recording now.
Oh, okay.
It's recording.
Which
Say
episode
hello.
is it?
Well, what are you doing?
51.
I'm playing with my Tamagotchis.
You tell me. Oh.
I'm electrocuting it. It's a Pikachu.
What?
Oh, it's a Tamagotchi or a pocket Pikachu?
Yeah, well, it looks like a Pikachu. It could be an obese squirrel, but I bought it from someone at the Spencer's at the mall. And we bartered. I gave him some noodles.
That's great. And so you're torturing it?
Yeah. It's got like special commands. It's jail baited.
Wait, are you just trying not to shake it?
No, I'm electrocuting it with. I can do lots of things. I've got some like medieval torture traps. Look at it for yourself. He's screaming.
Oh my God.
He's scared.
Oh my God.
He is scared.
You can see it in the way that his eyeballs vibrate.
Make him not sad.
So the goal is to just keep him in pain?
Yeah,
Okay.
See how much he can handle.
That's fascinating. Well, hey, let's you guys ready to get started? We got a great episode for you.
Suffering is close to God, Barbie.
Yeah, and
you want to be more religious, you need to go through more pain.
Right, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Yeah.
Sure, I wasn't arguing against
Think about
that.
Globe.
Okay. No. So we got some things to talk about for you guys, and then we also, our main story tonight is going to involve a former housekeeper and a murdered daughter and a giant meth ring. So we're going to see how this all ties
A math
in.
ring?
Meth.
Like a bunch of Chinese international students in here?
No, mathematics.
Methamphetamine.
Methamphetamine. Oh,
Breaking Bad, yeah.
Meth.
The drug, yeah.
Oh, why did you say so? All right, well, let's get started.
Let's get started. Well, hey, I'm Bobby Pavlovsky.
And I'm Teddy Ronald Reagan. This may is
And this is
JonBenet today.
New tonight, JonBenet Ramsey's father says he's feeling encouraged after sitting down with Boulder's new police chief for the first time on Monday.
JonBenet was found murdered in the Ramsey family home in Boulder 28 years ago. Well, John Ramsey says the goal of this meeting was to push for testing and retesting of evidence using genetic genealogy.
Denver 7's Amy Wattis shares how that meeting went.
Well, it was a good meeting.
81-year-old John Ramsey says he spent close to 2 hours with Boulder's new police chief, Stephen Redfern, the district attorney, and others from the department on Monday, discussing his daughter JonBenet's 28-year-old unsolved case.
I was impressed. They were not arrogant, cocky, big egos. They were eager to talk and they want to get the case solved, and they're open to all options that are available.
John says the main reason he was there was to talk about using genetic genealogy to test and retest DNA evidence.
If we do that, I believe there's a pretty good chance we can identify the killer. I really do.
Did they give you any indication that that's what they're doing?
We don't know. I mean, they're also professionals in that they don't talk about everything they're doing. I respect them for being cautious, but I believe that they are open to this technology that's available now.
Did they give you any type of detail as to where the investigation stands?
You know, they said they've gotten a lot of leads because of this documentary that came out on Netflix. And we've got leads as well, which I've given to them when we met.
John says he brought a DNA expert with him to the meeting in hopes they could provide some needed insight.
He said, we can work with a few picograms of information, of DNA sample. The police, to their credit, and the DA said, look, we got to be sure that if we go with the lab, outside lab, they really are the right choice. And they're not just doing it because they want good advertising.
Now, John says it's a waiting game, and he's hopeful a killer will eventually be identified if the technology is used. He stresses he will never give up the fight for JonBenet.
You want your child to that loss make a difference. How can we make the world a better place based on what we've learned?
Amy Wattis, Denver 7.
Oh, well, they can use fecograms now. Wow. That's interesting.
How can we make the world a better place based on what we learned? Which seems like he's leaning very much on like, oh, if we find out it's not us, then everyone will learn of like, oh, let's not jump to conclusions through the media.
And also makes their world a better place. It's like, oh, let's bring someone from an outside lab. And it's that same DNA thing you were talking about, Bobby, which destroys the piece of evidence that they use. So that then if they find the quote unquote killer, you know, because there's so many leads from that Netflix documentary, which we all know how fucking much bullshit that is. And then we've got all these leads of our own, which are probably the same fucking leads. But it's like, they can just pin it on some dead guy, like, you know, or some kind of name, and then no one can ever test that DNA ever again to even corroborate it. We just have to take it at the word of this outside lab, which could be an outside lab, as we talked about, Bobby, you've mentioned.
Othram.
Othram.
Which, yeah, most have speculated that they're pretty sure it was an Othram representative that accompanied John, especially based on what the guy specified, like the sample size that they can use and then identify a source on. So,
and it's like, and is, you know, and with that outside company, when we're talking about like an outside company, you know, money talks when it comes to a private company,
right?
You know, and it could be almost even designed to facilitate so that if you need to even maybe wrest away control from a third party or a public service investigation, like a police department, of an important piece of evidence or some kind of something that then you could then declare what the end result is, and how many people in the real world, everybody, you know, because it's a corrupt world. Money talks. How many times, how many cases are there out there where if, you know, there's DNA samples involved, or it's a cold case where someone can't shake it as, you know, from being called a suspect, where if you could write a check and then have this a seemingly authoritative third-party DNA testing lab that can test DNA, but that, you know, they can only do it one time before the sample's destroyed, but then they can claim, oh, it was X, Y, or Z, and X, Y, or Z could be long dead, or someone who can't defend themselves, or just a general third party that is not the prime suspect or the person paying for maybe this to even happen, but like it just gets the monkey off their back, and also gives them the chance to be like, it was decided, and like this was, you know, what's that one guy, Bobby, who lived in the junkyard?
Michael Helgott.
We're
going to be talking about him a little bit later again too.
Yeah, the guy who, you know, like he was even being like potentially, I mean, almost just like scouted as possibly like someone that this could be blamed on, but he already quote unquote killed himself, or he was dead. It was Valentine's Day.
Well, this would be the fancier way of, you know, blaming somebody else for a murder. But this is all allegedly too.
Allegedly.
And I guess we should preface before we get too far ahead of ourselves. That meeting took place back in early January.
Okay.
Of this meeting finally happening.
A 2-hour meeting. Not to be confused with a 2-hour tour by Gilligan's
Honestly,
Island.
I'm surprised that, again, John's out in the media saying that he feels confident, you know, where it's like almost...
What does he have to lose? He's 81 at
but
this
also,
point.
it doesn't mean they're necessarily going to go with the DNA company that he's saying. And also, it might be... Honestly, I was thinking this as we were watching the clip, where he says, like, they want to make sure that somebody's not just doing it for the press or attention. Where, honestly, what if it was a thing where they said right there in that meeting, hey, we'll agree to just do it, and we'll never say that we're the company. But I'm sure that'll eventually get leaked later. As they solve it, in quotes. But... That's interesting because I thought it was interesting that no one said what DNA company was with them at the meeting.
Right.
So what if that agreement started right then and there is like, okay, we'll not say that.
Yeah.
You know, because John's already paid for what we need.
Keeps it open for bidding, too.
Well, and also it could be an optics thing where they're like, listen, if we had maybe some kind of, even someone be a spokesperson for Othram, and then if we even put them in front of a news camera, that could make this more complicated to make them even maybe at the end of the day, at the end of even the whole purpose of it existing and us, you know, our relationship with them, like, is to make it look like they're impartial third party. But then if they're saying anything where they sympathize or they're trying to help John Ramsey, that could, you know, people could then, like us, then turn to the camera and like, how weird is it, that interview? But this, I could tell from John Ramsey, where they finally had the meeting that he wanted, and he's trying to do a charm offensive where he's trying to make it look like they're
cooperating with us, which means I'm innocent.
I believe they're gonna, you know, do the right thing or whatever. And, you know, but the moment if they ever decide to do something he doesn't like, then he's immediately gonna go back on the attack.
Exactly.
But in this time, he's hedging his like bets and trying to increase his aims, you know, or the likelihood of them letting having him and his proposal occur, or because he's trying to fluff him. It's like a fluffer in a porn movie,
and the public making it seem like that, like they've been swayed by this Netflix doc and this meeting, and the fact that I'm happy about this meeting makes it seem like we finally got them to be turning around, which could be the exact opposite of what happened, because he said they didn't share that much too. Like in the same vein, he's also saying they haven't shared that much, whether or not they've even done their own testing and like who they're using. He's like, they're professionals and they are sharing. Which it's interesting now that he's like framing it in that way. Like normally he'd go against them, where it's like, as these victims, we should have access to all this stuff. Now it's, they're shutting me out because they're professionals.
And in some ways, him going against them was what got him the meeting. But then, and now this is a chance where he can be like, listen, because this is all a social game too.
Right.
Where it's like who's in and who's out. And, then it's like that kind of whole, like it's a small club and you're not in it. And it's like, here's your chance, Redfern, where, you could, be a part of all of this and, blah, blah, blah. And like until John Ramsey and company get like a definitive response, which this is where the whole professional thing, because he was like, they don't say everything that they're doing. You know what I mean?
I think it's more of a victims meeting is what it is. Is like, I'm pretty sure there's like a statute that says that they have to be provided annual updates on the case. So they could also just be using that as a reframing to make it seem like, we use this Netflix doc to leverage a meeting.
Right.
But it's really
like just some kind of momentum.
Yeah, but it's really just your annual victims meeting.
That's a good point.
So
it's just them doing the bare minimum. It's like 2 hours of a fucking day. This guy, Police Chief Redfern is a police chief every day.
Yeah.
And this is just 2 hours of one day. But it took over a year for John Ramsey to have this meeting where he could just bring his Othram rep, and they're just playing footsie under the table.
Right.
And they're fluffing each other's dicks and just making their dicks bigger by squeezing them.
No, you stop.
Well, I'm just saying that's what
No,
the
that's what I'm saying. The Othram rep's saying to John.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's more of a rhetorical thing.
He's talking.
His eyes were lighting up.
We're going to get in trouble, John.
Every time he says a dip dong, he just gives a little
dick dong.
Dick a squeeze. It's what they do.
They get the look and listen from the chief. They're holding the L up. Come on, kid.
Like, okay.
Holds up over his lips.
Which you can fluff the Pikachu in this game too.
It takes a fluffing.
Yeah, he kind of likes it, so I don't like to do it. But I mainly just torture him.
Just
I just cut off one
Is
of
this
his
like a
arms.
modded pocket Pikachu?
Hey, Marty, Singapore's.
Like 2019, like what?
What?
Shut up.
No,
You said modern.
You waste your
No,
breath with the
modded.
dumbest fucking questions.
No. She
modded?
misheard. It's modded. Like, did somebody go in and change the mechanics of the game?
Yeah.
Like an illegal
Okay.
version
What the
of-
fuck did you mean?
She thought you said modern. Modern.
Modern.
Like, I mean, the originals came out in like what, the 90s? So I'm like, do they have like a newer one? I guess not.
Pokemon Go.
I mean,
You can catch them all just outside.
Do you hear him? He's crying.
Yeah, keep it away from your
It
mic.
was so sad.
You want? Well,
No, don't kill it.
if I don't do it on this little robot Pikachu machine thing, I put in my pocket. I might do it on someone else.
Oh, well, that's. I guess it's containing your age.
So I can keep playing while we're talking.
Yeah, it's not really making that much noise, and honestly, you seem kind of oddly calm for what you're supposedly doing.
Yeah, a little zen, a little too zen.
It's a little, yeah.
like two apiece, like with the aggression that
yeah. Yes.
right? Yeah.
How are you, Donna? Are you doing good?
I'm good.
That's good.
Everybody's gotta feel pain.
Oh, Ted.
We all feel pain. What are we talking about today?
Okay. Well, hey,
God,
are you
yeah.
anything else to say on the John meeting with the Boulder PD?
No, I mean, it's to be pretty expected.
It's just all talk. You can say whatever you want, but as long as there's no one that's gonna like come back and push against it, like it's still only your opinion.
Well, for
no
now,
one else is gonna hear anything else.
Well, for now, he's making it seem like he's friends with them. And again,
Obviously.
let's see how long that lasts.
they probably can't talk about it if they are like.
No, they never have. And that's the thing,
Right.
because they couldn't talk about it when he would go to CrimeCon and stuff and say certain things. They wouldn't defend themselves because it's just, it's kind of beneath them.
Exactly.
But for years he was on Tamron Hall, and they've been trying to play this whole DNA angle. Meanwhile, that Netflix documentary spent a third of itself trying to portray John Mark Carr as the potential killer.
Right.
When it's like that, everything.
A waste. Like,
a
just
waste.
like, yeah.
And also, but it indicates like they were doing that whole thing of like, everyone's on the table except Burke, nobody blame
Right.
Burke. But like, they're trying to make it so that, like, oh, we have a rogue gallery of Batman villains that are the same people that we've already spent individual even episodes discussing and ultimately, for the most part, debunking. And then you have this other angle of, oh, who's going to have the DNA that matches what the police have that we've never had access to, but once we use it, it'll be destroyed. But then we get to say who's the DNA belong to, but no one can ever, check our work. And we can almost just do it where, we've already made it, it's already been... put through the meat grinder to make sure it's someone that isn't going to fuck up, the official narrative of our events or anybody can double check or be like, oh, there's no an alibi that,
Yeah, they have complete control of the narrative.
Yeah.
And there's no one pushing against.
Because the Boulder police can't be commenting on an open investigation.
Exactly. But like with social media, like all you're going to see is like his side and nothing else.
I just hope, if they were to do anything, I would hope that you would find like, send one piece of evidence somewhere, send another piece of evidence somewhere else, and then like a third piece of evidence through like their means or whatever. I don't know.
There's no way a reputable company is not offering up their services already to
you would think they might.
For them to use. But so before we move on to our main story, we're going to take a little bit of a trip back in time to April of 1996.
Oh my God, April 1996 is even better.
That's 96.
That's 96. That's Patsy Ramsey.
That's Patsy Ramsey. What a year.
In W. Omen's magazine.
And no, Women's.
Oh, I thought it said
Patsy
Omen,
Ramsey
like
on the
Omen.
cover of Women's magazine, whatever the hell that is.
Yeah, what is that?
Wow.
I guess it's pretty self-explanatory.
Women's who's ever heard of a woman reading a magazine? Go on. Yeah.
I guess, it's not like the what is it? Boy Love It. What is it? Better Living Monthly. Remember when we did the North Fox thing? They had weird magazines that were like Better Living Monthly, but it was really Boy Lovers magazine.
Oh my God, I remember that.
Codes and stuff.
Yeah.
I just had forgotten that and been able to sleep at night, and and what's that say on our titty, Bobby?
It says profile Patsy Ramsey.
Wow, what a great headline!
Right. Well, it's to let you know inside you're gonna get to find out more about this incredible woman.
It's like it's like an advertisement for Maybelline with cerebral palsy people.
Like the font, like kind of reminds me of like that French, like Henry Latreille, like whatever.
Oh my
like,
God, this is what she's wanting to talk
it just
about.
it looks like an old timey like horror painting, honestly.
Yeah. Anyway,
True. What the fuck?
she don't know it, and it don't matter. Let's just move it on.
Latreille, something like that. It's French. I don't speak French.
So, Patsy, and also credit to Reddit user Ghost Storm for posting this old article and transcribing it for everybody to be able to read a lot better.
Thank you, Ghost Storms.
Thank you, Ghost Storm. And I'll have a link in the description for the actual post. But it's just interesting, real quick, that Patsy was profiled in this piece in April of that year.
Same year.
And then we know that she went for the Today Show, and then thought, I was going to cap off this year with being in.
She wanted to be in the spotlight.
Bill McReynolds, that Santa documentary.
That's right. She was like, this is my year. I just survived cancer. I'm putting myself out there, and I'm going to be the archetype. I'm going to be the next Martha Stewart. Right. Instead, she's more like the French Stewart.
Right. And what I also find interesting, which we'll start reading some of this, is that in the first half of this, they don't really make a lot of mention of the beauty queen stuff.
Really?
Yeah, it's more of the self-empowered stuff and background on it.
Oh my God, go ahead and read it, Bobby. I know we can actually all read. We can all read.
Do you want to read it?
Yeah.
Go for it.
No.
No, come on, read it.
You're a great narrator.
Yeah.
Go.
Can you read that, right?
Yeah. Oh God, it's so far. I don't want you to break your monitor. You go ahead, do it. It says something about
The importance of home and family has never been more talked about than in the 90s as men and women struggle to meet demands of busy, complicated lives. In the midst of so many options and as a result of a life-threatening illness 3 years ago, Patsy Ramsey has chosen her lifestyle and has dedicated herself to the role of stay-at-home mother, a title that seems a bit of a misnomer since Ramsey is rarely at home. She fills her days with volunteer service to the community and in her children's schools. In addition, she regularly travels with her husband, John, CEO and president of Access Graphics, an international distributor of computer products that is headquartered in Boulder. I've intentionally chosen not to participate in anything that requires evening meetings, says Ramsey. That's the time when my family really comes first.
Disgusting.
Whether we're dining in or out, dinner time is set aside to review everyone's daily activities and talk things over.
Well, today I peed my pants, and then today I peed my pants.
Right. What did you do? Mom, it's like you were controlling everything, you know, kind of thing.
Mom, you're slurring.
Or they were not. Maybe they were neglected. As a woman formerly involved in a successful career in advertising as well as other ventures, choosing to abandon the career for what some would consider an unexciting lifestyle was an easy decision. Being a mother and mentor to my children is the most important role I will play in my life, she says. It is certainly the most difficult job I'll ever have.
Yeah, surprisingly, she didn't do too well at it.
Right.
Well,
Not
I
for
mean,
everyone.
You know, I mean, but it's
She followed
demanding.
in the end zone, you know? She was right there.
Yeah, she was in
Well,
advertising.
She just didn't stick the landing.
You know, you need to get a degree in motherhood, and in order to really, you know,
It should be
people just want
harder.
to jump right in.
She said it's a big job to be a full-time wife and mother. The logistics of all of it in the 90s can be overwhelming. It's an even more difficult challenge for women with careers as they still find themselves intuitively doing mom jobs as well. She said realistically, Ramsey goes on, women still have 2 to 3 jobs. Many have full-time jobs as well as shouldering the majority of the responsibility for their children. We really can't give 100% in so many different areas, and often something suffers. Many times it's the woman's health. We're so busy taking care of others, children, husbands, parents, that we don't take enough time to care for ourselves.
Amen.
Ain't that true?
I mean, a woman.
I like how it was like highlighting more so like the whole being a stay-at-home mother, and then she made sure to fill in the thing of like, but you know, the other thing's still.
That doesn't say much.
You guys, you
And
know,
also, I'm not home at all, but I am at night.
you're still a mother even though you work, kind
Yeah.
of thing.
You're
right?
still a mother, even though you know, your kid died
But
on
then
your
you
watch.
also have cancer.
Well, she had cancer because
Wait.
she was doing 3 jobs.
Right. Ramsey herself was raised with 2 sisters in a typically traditional household in Parkersburg, West Virginia. Her formative years were greatly influenced by her upbringing. The household was full of closeness and love, and
Gross.
the girl's father worked outside the home while their mother did not. Extended family activities were spent with their grandparents, aunts, uncles, and cousins on weekends.
Jesus, okay. Like, what is that even saying? Oh, they lived in a place and they had a family and they
The dad worked, the mom stayed at home.
and they had
They
other
did the
family
normal
members.
stuff.
Wow.
My mom. That's
Their
how I saw
upbringing
it.
is amazing. I know so much about it now.
Cliff
basic.
notes on
You got a
this.
grandma?
She got a bachelor's degree in advertising and marketing from West Virginia University. She began her career with McCann Erickson Advertising Agency,
Oh.
where she focused on doing promotional marketing for Coca-Cola USA.
Like Madeline McCann, the girl that was abducted in Spain?
What?
What?
Oh, no, McCann Erickson, like from Mad Men.
Oh, man.
It's like she's Peggy and she got the Coca-Cola account, which would be a huge deal if you
yeah.
guys watch Mad Men.
Peggy got Coca-Cola. Patsy, she got the Fresca.
Right. Later, she joined Hayes Microcomputer Products as director of marketing service and worked there for 5 years developing user-friendly product instruction manuals. One of the software manuals Ramsey was responsible for won first place in an international technical writing competition.
Jesus fucking
Her job with Hayes also put her in charge of special events, trade shows, and in-house advertising.
Wow. First place in a manual competition. Wow.
Is that really a thing?
That's even better than being first place
That's
in Miss
crazy.
America.
like
didn't
I
even
can make
mention
a
in
better
this,
HR
'cause she
manual. Like,
They talk
what?
about her chemotherapy in Bethesda, Maryland, which we know John did not go to.
And she even cut short one time to kind of confront someone that she had heard was cheating. John was cheating on her with.
Right.
Oh,
During
God.
Ramsey's battle with cancer, her mother came to live with the family in Boulder for a year. Coincidentally, Ramsey recalls, my mother had just retired 2 days before my diagnosis from a full-time job that she had enjoyed for several years after her children were grown, just in time to be a full-time mom again. She not only took care of me, but she helped John take care of our children as well. We couldn't have gotten along without her. So it's interesting because we know she worked at Access Graphics and supposedly she was actually fired.
Yeah, yeah.
So
A little messy.
She was pissed off at that
Like,
one
what
guy.
happened? Yeah.
And, you know,
living
but
separately from Don.
coincidentally, 2 days after she had retired, she could then be there to look after my kids and maybe spy on my husband while I was being ferreted back and forth solo across the country to Boston to have, or Bethesda, Maryland, to have my fucking chemo done.
She talks about how the
She
neighbors
just-
gave them a bunch of support while she was going through that and brought them meals and shit.
Of course.
Even as everyone around her was so wonderful for her children, I knew ultimately they were my real reason to fight the cancer and live. No one can take care of my kids and do the things I want to do with them the way I can. And I plan to be around for a long time to see them through.
Wow.
Well, not that long.
I mean, no.
Ramsey is comfortably seated in her sunroom in an oversized chair. A small arrangement of daffodils and tulips reposes next to her. I consciously decided to take the time to enjoy the small things like fresh cut flowers, she says. They bring great joy to my life. Ramsey's smile broadens as she describes her early morning hours. Every morning I look out my bedroom window at daybreak, she says, and I thank God for another day to be living here and taking care of my children.
Wow.
God.
She should have thanked Carter.
humble.
So she was in the sunroom, which is the same sunroom that eventually she was spending her entire time being in hysterics, which was the sunroom directly over the basement wine room where JonBenét's body was, in a way that almost like the sound of her action there could provide any cover if someone wanted to go in the basement and move some things around or whatever. So
making
no
a
one else could hear.
ruckus.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the sunroom makes an appearance in there. I mean, my God. I mean, it's all, it's just, it's like a great TV show. Like the movie show on Apple's Severance.
Oh, yeah.
Where it's
Great
like,
show.
I've been watching that show. I got to watch
Oh.
the episodes a couple times because, there's a lot.
And you understand
They
it?
don't talk a lot. So I don't know what they're feeling.
You have to
and
read
then I don't know
that.
what's happening because I've got room blindness, though.
Do you mean they don't talk a lot like you have it on mute? Because they talk in that show. I don't know what you're talking about.
But it's not a lot. They just say, they don't say nothing about, they don't announce how they feel or what they plan to do next. It's
They express it
it's a hard.
differently.
It's like a book that's hard to read. It's a show that
You're growing as a person. You're realizing that people express their emotions in other ways.
Teddy's come a long way.
He's got to learn how to read people.
and
that's tough.
Thank you.
Good job, bud.
I am growing.
Ramsey goes on that we all get so busy, so caught up in life, and we come to believe that we are in control. We live by our day timers and go from one appointment to another until something like cancer presents another agenda, and we realize that life is fleeting.
Life's fleet whiting. Yeah.
She never forgets how fortunate she is, not only to have fought the illness, but also have the opportunity to live the life she has chosen. She talks about how she gets to pack off the kids and stuff like that. Ramsey's always been involved in the community and believes that volunteer work is an important contribution. Ramsey's skills and professional acumen serve her well as she writes business plans for fundraising projects and job descriptions for committee workers and meets with area professionals and corporate executives to solicit sponsorships to benefit local causes. From her efforts with the Eggleston Children's Hospital that raise over $1 million annually to her work locally on such illustrious projects as the Toast to the Artists opening night event for the Colorado Dance Festival that will honor Mikhail Baryshnikov. Ramsey has impressed all around her.
Okay, I'm gonna get that off. He was Carrie's boyfriend from Russia in the 5th season of Sex and the City, which I've never watched.
Romanov? No, I know you're talking about the artist.
That's Mikhail.
I like this one. This one I didn't know, and I thought it was really interesting. Although Ramsey puts a great deal of energy into her local community, she is hardly confined to activities around Boulder. Being the wife of a busy corporate CEO requires Ramsey to accompany John to many functions around the world. Most recently, the couple attended a formal affair in Washington, D.C., honoring the retiring CEO of Lockheed Martin.
Yeah. She's like, I'm there to make sure his,
But this
his
is when
pen
she
stays in the
has
company
cancer
ink.
currently, right? Like, because
She
I'm
had
just
cancer
trying to
3 years
picture,
ago.
like,
No, not during this article.
Okay,
She had already
good.
beat
All
the
right.
cancer. Now she's
I don't
like,
know. I just questioned the cancer.
What?
Don-
You fucking.
Don-
She's such a stupid bitch. I can't.
Wait, no, it's not. No one's questioning. She had cancer. So, moving on. Now
know.
she's
No.
Jackie Kennedy, CEO wife,
She likes to, chew on pencils and queef.
Yeah. In light of all Ramsey family obligations, chosen responsibilities, and devoted energy on her volunteer work, she admits that there are other interests that she hasn't found time to pursue. I'd love to find the time to paint, she says. Somehow I always think I'll get to it during the summer when we're in our cottage in Michigan, but it hasn't happened yet. That was her segue to talk about the cottage, because then it goes, the Ramsey family summer house may not yet be home to Ramsey artistry, but it is home to countless other activities for the Ramseys and their children. It is the most wonderful spot on earth, says Ramsey. Obviously, other people in the small town of Charlevoix agree. This July, the house will be part of a local tour of homes. A benefit fundraiser for the local area hospital.
They're always doing tour
Tours,
homes.
yeah.
I can't help it.
Like, just let everyone in.
Boulder, Charlevoix.
Anyone and everyone.
I mean,
So safe.
what the fuck are you mean? What's your insinuation
Like, just
with
letting
that?
people
You
come into
sound-
your house. Like, with
Yeah, you're right.
They end the article with, she has a favorite quotation by Edwin Markham that she truly lives by. It is destiny which makes us brothers. None goes by his way alone. All that we send into the lives of others comes back into our own.
Oh. Yeah. Maybe not something you should repeat to yourself every day of your life.
No. Well, she wakes up and
becomes a curse.
Looks out the window and thanks God for the...
Yeah.
I wonder if she did that on December 26th.
She does some Kegels while she stares into the sun.
Obviously.
But that was the Women's Magazine article about Patsy.
Wow. Patsy Ramsey, advertising genius, gets advertised in W. Women's Magazine is the perfect housewife, but it's not a housewife, but it's a job, but I still do my shit with my husband.
And they work in way later in the article that she's a beauty pageant thing where it's just like that.
Like
that
a little
transfers over.
add-on.
Like, oh yeah, and like
Because they want to be like, oh, we don't want people to dismiss me, please. I'm I'm a woman.
And in addition, I even do pageants or whatever. But they never say anything about like their children, except that like, oh, I do stuff at their school and whatever. I mean,
they only do stuff for them, is how she made it seem.
Yeah,
but it's more about like how busy she is and still managing it. But yeah. Like, it doesn't really talk about what she does for them specifically.
No.
You're right. It just talks
Right.
about the events that she
Was present for.
that she makes for their school.
Right,
yeah.
right.
A lot of times these Ramseys are always talking about how like good they are as parents, rather than like what good parents share about what their children.
Well, they can talk all day about how great they are at parenting. It doesn't mean they're actually doing that.
No,
Exactly.
they're toes.
And John's
At
not
all.
saying it.
Like,
John, like
Obviously, because
They're
she's having
great
to do
at
everything.
talking. They're great at messaging. Like, they're
Are they
gonna do
great,
their
or were they the
best.
only ones who had access to things and they're decent? But we used to be so fucking biased.
It's
We're like,
obvious
oh
the-
wow, she's a CEO's wife. Everybody,
Right. It's obvious the image they're building. So
She's
it's
trying to
interesting
make-
this was, months before the murder, but you see this woman who's trying to build her own brand
Yeah.
image. Like
she saw how Martha Stewart was able to come up and everything.
Yes.
She's like telling people like, oh yeah, like I joined my
marketing
husband to the
material.
Lockheed Martin CEO retirement party. Like they hobnob with the same people as Martha Stewart and mother.
I bet she would have wrote a book.
Yeah,
before.
if she could fucking write,
Wanna be Martha.
she just keeps chewing on those number 2 pencils.
Well, hey, let's get into our main story. You guys ready?
I'm ready.
All right, main story tonight. We're going to talk about the Ramsey's former housekeeper. And no, we're not talking about Linda Hoffman Pugh. We're talking about Geraldine Vodicka.
She's a housekeeper.
She's
Briefly had a relationship with Martin Lawrence while he was in his Big Mama House prosthetics. She felt deceived when he took it off. Okay, proceed.
Geraldine Vodicka was a short-lived housekeeper for the Ramseys back in 1995. Supposedly it was like September of 95 to October of 95.
Oh, okay. Around the time the Toy Story came out.
So James Cola interviewed Geraldine Vodicka for his book. This is what most people know her from. I had reviewed an investigator's report that documented a 1997 interview with former Ramsey nanny, housekeeper Geraldine Vodicka, who stated that Burke had smeared feces on the walls of a bathroom during his mother's first bout with cancer. She told investigators that Nidra Pa, who was visiting the Ramsey home at the time, had directed her to clean up the mess.
No.
She says there were other police reports in the files that documented what I could be viewed as related behavior. CSIs had written about finding a pair of pajama bottoms in JonBenet's bedroom that contained fecal matter.
Oh my God.
They were too big for her and they were thought to belong to Burke. Additionally, a box of candy located in her bedroom had also been observed to be smeared with feces. Both of these discoveries had been made during processing of the crime scene during the execution of search warrants following the discovery of JonBenet's body.
A box of candy had poop smears on it.
Yeah, we know that. We've
What
talked
a
about
big
that.
brother thing to do.
I hate how much we have to talk about poop because of this case.
It always comes back to
gross.
fecal matter.
Fecal.
Well, that's more him.
Everyone does it.
Yeah, we don't have to do
That's
it 2
disgusting,
episodes.
John. It doesn't excuse the fact that I mean we don't need to be talking about it all the time, but
Okay,
we're forced to because of the
Pocket
details of
pinching.
this case. And Burke, in not knowing how to process his emotions while his mom's going through cancer and everything else is probably going on in their lives, he's putting poop on the wall.
Well,
It's a prankster.
He's pooping it in his pants.
so some people have pointed out, though, also, because we need to confirm her timeline of working there. Because again, if it's, as it's shown online, been like September and October of 95, she was in remission already.
Oh.
So it would have
Patsy
been,
was.
Patsy was. So it would have been a thing if she didn't actually maybe work with them with cancer, or it's just misreported.
Oh,
So
yeah.
he said he had reviewed an investigator's report that documented a 1997 interview with her, Geraldine Vodicka.
Okay, man.
So it's people use this as the thing of, oh, this was the account of Burke smearing feces on the wall.
Okay.
So
Oh,
it
yeah,
begs
yeah.
the question of why would she make that up? If,
Right.
Or
Well,
I think it was more misread, but we might find a reason she would make it up as we dive a little deeper into this episode. I don't think she did, though. I'm just saying if, I see how the other side could use it.
Okay.
Yeah.
We talked about how she'd only worked there for 2 months. Well,
Right.
what happened? There's been speculations that supposedly she was fired.
She got fired.
She got fired for supposedly maybe stealing money out of Patsy's purse.
Oh my
Messy.
God.
And they would go through a lot of housekeeping.
All kinds of women.
All kinds of women going through there.
Housekeepers.
And then,
Yeah,
like,
why
there's-
so many?
And there's one housekeeper who we don't know if it's, the one we're talking about, Geraldine Vodicka, where the kids supposedly didn't like, because Burke had mentioned that supposedly this nanny hit us.
Oh my God.
Kind of thing, like he would hit us on the head and she was mean to him kind of thing.
Oh my God.
Oh my God.
And fascinating also how in this in that W. Ullman's Weekly, whatever fucking magazine, when Patsy's talking about, oh, I'm a housewife, but I'm never home. Like, well, when you have housekeeper,
That's a great
Right.
point.
you can do that. You're not really a housewife in the sense of
You're not bound to those.
I'm not talking about house mother.
And a gardener in December who's fixing your candy canes, and then like
Right.
Linda Huffman Pugh, it wasn't even just her. Her husband would come out and work on things at the house. Like he would have been the one to fix that window if they would have asked him.
Right.
Wow.
It's
But
just, yeah.
that's the thing of including family members. So it also begs the question of like, did Geraldine also involve her daughter, Dominique, to possibly help out? Because it turns out this woman's got a little bit of a record. Her
Dominique
name is,
Vodicka.
she got fired. We don't know what the circumstances were. Maybe it was she stole something, which seems to be the consensus, or was she the nanny that supposedly, assaulted the kids?
Oh,
and maybe that was a no-go. But also, like you said, very interesting that Patsy doesn't bring up all the help they had,
I know.
kind of thing. But then her daughter, cut to a few months later, we're in 1996, almost to where, little JonBenet was murdered in December. That summer, Dominique, she also goes by Geraldine, her mother's name, because her name is Geraldine Dominique Vodicka.
Oh my God.
But it's interesting how you're going to see when she decides she wants to use her mother's name and when she decides to use Dominique.
Oh,
It's-
strategic.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. But she gets arrested in August of 1996 for check forgery.
Dominique, she got arrested for check forgery. She was writing bad checks. Yeah, wow.
And this wasn't a well-off family, but she also had a sister. Her name was Lorraine Lawrence. So we've always talked about how, and they talked about even in the Netflix documentary, that JonBenet was the first murder in Boulder.
That's
for
right.
the year of 1996.
That's right. That's a fact, everybody.
So it turns out that might not actually be true.
I mean, it is December 26th. Like, it's the whole year. Like,
What?
it's the whole year.
No, I don't mean in like a technical way, like, oh, you could just move it to the other. I mean, there was technically another murder.
Right.
Another murder happened that year.
What do you mean, right? I haven't even told you yet. You don't know.
This
So
is what taxes are paying for, people.
It's all right. It's all right. We're all having a good time. I'm so glad everybody's here.
Oh, yeah.
You having a good time?
Yeah, you know?
Yeah,
You're just giving me such a look.
I'm having a fine time.
All right. Calm down, everybody. But
I'm going to have a better time if Donna stops talking.
So it turns out that on December 4th, they found a body badly beaten and in a construction ditch.
What?
This was the body of Lorraine Lawrence. She was 37, and she was the daughter of Geraldine Vodicka.
Lorraine Lawrence with the daughter of Jeremy Dick, and she with the dead body on December 4th in a ditch.
In a ditch. So,
She was dead like a deer.
right, the next day, on December 5th, the Daily Camera, they made an article. They said, police investigate the site where a construction worker found the body of a 37-year-old Boulder woman. As her grieving mother and sister watched Wednesday morning, authorities removed the body of a 37-year-old Boulder woman from construction site ditch, close to her apartment near the North Boulder Recreation Center.
Oh my God.
A Twin Peaks excavating foreman discovered the body of Lorraine Lawrence face down in a hole near Boulder Housing Authority's apartment complex in the 3100 block of Broadway about 7:50 a.m. Wednesday, Boulder police said. We are treating it as a suspicious death, said city spokesman Kelvin McNeil. It appears that the hole was properly covered and access to it was limited. Police would not comment on the condition of the body of possible suspects. The Boulder County Coroner's Office planned to conduct an autopsy today. Workers had covered the 6-foot hole with 2 pieces of plywood in heavy buckets Tuesday night. We had it secured so nobody could lift the plywood. It was safe so nobody could fall in, and there was equipment parked around it, said J.D. Lemmel, who found the body. When I got there this morning, the plywood was broken, and when I looked in, she was only in panties and a t-shirt, Lemmel said. Lemmel notified police, who said they found a trail of blood leading from the apartment building to the hole, as well as a broken beer bottle near the scene. Investigators removed the body about 1 p.m. as runners and recreation center users stopped and stared.
Oh my God.
That's so sad.
She was bleeding all the way from her apartment to where this construction site had a ditch that was covered with plywood, and then she went ahead and she was in it somehow, and the plywood was moved. It was already a hole that
They
was
had
there.
it covered up, so they're saying that like nobody could have fallen in, and that's from the guy that found a body that works at the construction site.
The police treated suspicious.
Right.
So they go on to say that 2 murders occurred in Boulder in 1995, and as of July, none had taken place in the city this year, McNeil said. So it's interesting that they only had 2 murders the year before. So it's weird that their coroner is, this would be a thing where I'm just saying, like, being a coroner, you don't think about, like, oh, if you don't see that many, murder victims, how
He's
good can you?
He's sitting, leaning against the morgue cabinets, smoking cigarettes. And
So they talked to Geraldine, too,
Jenny Jones.
in this article. Geraldine Vodicka, Lawrence's mother, said her daughter had epilepsy, but I don't think that's why she's dead today. I think someone killed her. Dominique Vodicka, Lawrence's sister, who moved into the North Boulder apartment complex 3 months ago, so she lived there.
Oh.
She said a neighbor saw her last night at 9 p.m. sitting on the ice in her underwear with a black eye and blood dripping from her eye, and there was a guy walking near her. The neighbor made her go inside, but he never called us. The neighbor should have informed the family, said Jonathan Smith, a family friend. If it looked like she'd been punched or hit, and if he had called us to the police, she would be alive today, Smith said. She wouldn't have hurt a fly, and she didn't deserve to die.
Oh my God.
But Lawrence had encountered violence in the past several years, according to records from the Boulder County Sheriff's Department. Records show she reported an assault in May 1990, a domestic dispute in January 91, and saw a friend harass her sister, Elena Romero, in October 1996. Neighbors said they occasionally heard Lawrence argue with friends, but did not notice any unusual noise Tuesday night. Some residents, however, said they heard a car speeding away during the evening. Irving Tejeda, who lives in an apartment next to Lawrence, said he noticed her wide open front door at 7 a.m. Wednesday. The lights were out and it was cold.
Oh my God. Something's fishy.
Yeah, something's
happening
wrong.
here. Something suspicious.
Some weird shit.
Something is very suspicious.
What's wrong?
Then on December 20th, as we want to point out, this is right before the Boulder Day of the Camera did a story on Access Graphics. Passing the $1 million mark.
$1 billion mark, Bob.
The coroner reached his ruling. The Boulder County Coroner's Office ruled Thursday that a 37-year-old woman found dead in a construction site died of exposure to the cold as a result of a seizure disorder complication. So they're saying that she had a complication, basically, that she wandered off.
She can wander off from her apartment all the way across the construction site into a hole that was covered, but she can't call 911.
Right?
Right.
They said the Boulder police continue to investigate the death of her, though.
But you're like, you can use her pre-existing condition and just like blame it, like, and that kind of seems like what's happening.
Right, and then they go on to explain that people who have seizures are known to be in a state of confusion following a seizure. We believe that she was in that state and was wandering around the complex, says Dan Pruitt, a medical investigator with the coroner's office. At some point, she fell into the construction hole where she was exposed to the cold. Neighbors heard a scream and a thump between 1 and 2 a.m. December 4th, said Detective Ron Gosage. So he would go to work on the Ramsey case.
Oh my God.
Some residents said they noticed a man and a woman arguing in a car speeding away during the evening. About 11 p.m., a resident saw Lawrence sitting outside on ice in her underwear with blood dripping from a cut above her eye. The neighbor escorted her back to the apartment, which that had been previously reported. But it's the thing that's it's all really suspicious. They said the police wouldn't comment on a pool of blood and this broken beer bottle. There are a lot of things present, but nothing that links them together, said Commander John Eller. Where he's saying this whole totality of the murder scene, where he's like, yeah, there's all these things, but
Come on,
none of
give
it
me a
makes
break.
sense, like
Wow,
kind of
just
thing.
talking to talk.
Just bullshitting. I mean, come on. There's so much weird shit. There's screams. There's speeding cars. There's a man and woman. There's, multiple witnesses across different hours. And, even just, and then you're trying to tell me, but there's no way to connect these dots.
Yeah, like calm down, everybody. Yeah, and they said residents did say that she would walk around in her panties a lot. And then Ella goes, it shows a pattern of behavior. Police plan to test the particle board for weight tolerance levels, he said.
Oh,
Yeah, he's like, I don't know if she was heavy enough to fallen in, said Geraldine Vodicka. I don't know what to think about what happened or how long she could have been there.
There's other times where she was walking around in her panties. Was she having seizures those times too? Or am I to be led to believe that, she was having a seizure and she was confused and that's why she was putting panties this time out in the cold?
Right.
You know what I mean? You can't have it both ways.
And they're saying coroner's officials do not know how long Lawrence remained in the ditch, which means they weren't really, I don't know. To me, it kind of seems like you weren't good enough to, if you can't determine a time of death, like, is most of your people that come in just old people where it's like, oh, we don't really have to cut them open because it's not as suspicious, just, kind of thing.
Or how many old people, might have been murdered, but they're just like, well, they're old and we don't take time to actually investigate anything.
Right. They don't worry as much.
I would have smothered an old person in Boulder with a pillow if I knew that, they'll just say it's old age.
That happens.
I mean, I know it.
Medical investigators did not find evidence of sexual assault or alcohol, Pruitt said. Lawrence, however, had ingested cocaine and an anticonvulsant drug, phenytoin, sometime before her death. We don't know how much or when she took it, Pruitt said. She wasn't wearing a lot of clothing and she could have easily have died if the hole wasn't there. The coroner's conclusions, however, did not reassure residents of the apartment complex. There are just too many unanswered questions, said Christine Gomez, who has lived in the complex for 6 months. Until they get answered, I don't know if I'll feel safe here again.
I mean, no, I went there. There's pools of blood and things.
Oh, obviously.
And this is December 20th.
Wow.
Somebody making a comment like, I don't know if we're going to feel safe here.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then we move on and we know that there's the Access Graphics party where John's published in the Daily Camera about, they crossed the $1 billion mark.
Yeah, that's a lot
thing.
of zeros. That's 9 zeros.
Right.
On January 10th then, this is now after JonBenét's been murdered.
Okay.
They're supposedly still looking into, Lorraine Lawrence's death.
Yeah.
They end up, the Boulder Daily Camera ends up publishing another article that says a tale of two victims.
Oh.
They said Boulder police said the murder of 6-year-old JonBenet was the only homicide in 1986. Others aren't so sure. Comparing how police handled the two cases, they said justice may be different for a poor woman like Lawrence and an affluent family like the Ramseys. I really believe justice will be served in the Ramsey case, said Tiffany Johnson, a friend of Lawrence's who lives in the same housing complex. It's just the difference between rich and poor. There's no doubt she was killed, and everyone knows it.
Well, she ended up not being correct. Justice hasn't been delivered, but they definitely spent more time actually investigating her case than they ever did with Lawrence. That's true.
And they point this out too. They said the neighbor who identified the body said Lawrence had been beaten so badly she couldn't recognize her friend's face.
Oh my God.
Lawrence's teeth were broken, her eyes were bloodied and blackened. A trail of blood led from her apartment to where her body was found, and police reportedly found a broken beer bottle next to a pool of blood. And we know they've commented where it's like, well, could all just be...
Oh my God.
There's been no explanation of how she replaced the plywood in 2 heavy buckets over a hole. As construction workers reportedly left it and found in the morning, they discovered her body. I'm not sure what happened, but it's hard for me to believe what the police say, that she died because of the cold. That's from the neighbor who identified Lawrence's body. She asked that her name not be used, which might be a sister. It's obvious that people who have more money are going to get more attention than people who are average. The police treatment of the Lawrence case, some say, is starkly different from how the Ramsey case has been handled so far. Police spent almost 10 days carefully scouring the Ramsey's house for evidence. They finished examining the Lawrence crime scene in about 2 days.
Wow.
And while the coroner completed and released the autopsy report on Lawrence about 2 weeks after her body was found, more than 2 weeks have passed since JonBenét's body was found, and no such report has been released. The report is not expected for a minimum of a week, according to the coroner's office.
Wow.
Police also released a detailed report about 2 weeks after Lawrence's death, even though they said it was still being investigated. In the Ramsey case, virtually all public records have been sealed. 911 recordings, search warrant affidavits, and lists of what was seized from the family home.
Wow.
When Lawrence died, police immediately questioned everyone involved, including her mother, sister, and stepfather. JonBenét's parents, John and Patsy Ramsey, flew to Georgia for their daughter's funeral. A week after her death, they were given a written list of questions. They have yet to be thoroughly interviewed in person. Police said they didn't question the Ramseys in order to give them time to grieve. If Lorraine's mom wanted to grieve and wanted time or wanted to leave the state, there's no way in hell they would have let her go, Johnson said.
I mean, exactly right. We've said that before.
Right.
When asked about the different handling of the 2 cases at Thursday's public forum, Kobe said it was only perceived to be different because of media hype. Why is the media giving so much attention to this case and literally no attention to the case you described? Kobe responded when questioned about the Lawrence case. The notion that we've treated them differently, any legal expert will tell you that we have handled this case exactly as it should be handled. If you go back and assess the homicides that Boulder has had, because they're infrequent events, you'll find a similar response.
The whole point is that it's not similar and that there are so few, and that also to say someone died of hypothermia when their teeth are broken out of their bloodied, blackened face and head.
Right.
Right.
And you're saying, but
the coroner said this.
Recovered.
The coroner said this, and it's like, is your similar response to treat murders like, yeah, we just go off what the coroner said, like,
Right.
Just because it happens so infrequently that you're like, oh, well, they just don't know how to handle it.
Well, if the coroner's like, she wasn't murdered, then
She wasn't murdered.
oh, cool. We don't have to. We don't have to investigate it. All this other evidence
that's
and
it.
witness testimony about the events of that night is moot because we're just going to
Coroner
go with the
said
coroner.
so.
And look at our history. Apparently, we've done that.
That's crazy.
So then we move on to February 12th, and it's a Daily Camera article that they make called "Case Not Closed in Lawrence Death. Police Lean Towards Exposure as Cause." And they actually talk to the Boulder County coroner, Dr. John Meyer.
But Maya said the controversy may have been fueled by some media speculation and inaccuracies. For instance, Maya Disputer reports that the construction hole where Lawrence's body was found had been recovered with plywood boards that covered the hole the day before. Lawrence's body was found leaning against a broken board in a hole. Her leg had been scraped and bruised, said Maya. The board was half-inch particle board, not plywood, something Chief Medical Investigator Tom Ford described as relatively lightweight. A person stepping on it, he said, could have easily fallen through.
But it was recovered over her.
Yeah, and so they're saying like medical investigator checking the...
They're checking the temerity and strength of fucking
Instead of looking at
particle
like
board rather
a
than like
blood trail and...
Yeah.
Wow. Like, what does
Jesus
that matter?
Christ.
The coroner initially investigated the case as a homicide, but an autopsy report showed the bruises and cuts on her face did not cause her death. Yeah, no shit.
Oh my God.
There are also no other signs that her death was caused by some sort of beating injury.
But it's like she
So
could
how
have
did
easily
her
been
dead
beaten
body end
to
up in
near
there?
death and then,
They're
thrown in
saying
the-
because they didn't find any skull fractures or eruption of spleen, they're saying then, it doesn't really show that she was beaten. And it's like, people can still be beaten.
about?
Like, yeah.
Yeah.
So the coroner also researched her medical history. It was that history that convinced him Lawrence died accidentally. From the women's medical records of Meyer learned that Lawrence, who suffered from epileptic seizures, had been found wandering around semi-closed, bruised, bloody, and confused on several instances, including the night before her death. Maya said such a period of confusion is common immediately following a seizure, called a post-ictal state. So she was also brought to the emergency room by a stranger in another instance who had found her outside her apartment half naked, incoherent, and covered in blood.
She also has a history of being in domestic violence situations. And so all these times where someone could have been beating the shit out of her, they're like, that's just what people with seizures do.
Right.
They
All
get
those
their
are
teeth and eyes
symptoms.
knocked out and their eyes bloodied and their face
She must have
bruised.
fallen down steps or whatever. Like,
She's a dizzy, diseased woman who doesn't got no money.
So they ended up, just going with what the coroner basically said.
Or,
and
the
left that
coroner
open.
just does the hatchet job of making sure, like, oh, what outcome do we want? Just like a DNA expert from a third-party lab might just be the final stamp of approval of, like, this is the authoritative final say of something. But the coroner's job in a place where there's also so few fucking reasons to have a coroner is just be like, okay, like, what do you want? What do you want me to put on here? Because it's a gross negligence of what people can see for their own eyes. And that's why the people that actually live there don't feel no safe.
And were they treated differently because they were poor? Was the investigation not handled as seriously? No. Because of that. And again, they ruled it just not a homicide, which leads the question, like, how often does Boulder just, is this really just about image of the town kind of thing? The daily cameras we've been referencing ended up helping out the family and holding like a little thing to try to raise money to get a headstone for it, because the family is, again,
that poor.
Is not that well off.
They can't even afford no stone.
So, and they did that. So, interesting enough, you cannot find the actual like articles about that anymore.
wow.
So that was pretty much the end of the Lorraine Lawrence saga.
My God.
With Geraldine Vodicka.
What a crazy, charmed spinoff of a reality of a life of these people.
That's not really focused on at all. And also, we should point out, though, I think this is an interesting note, that in none of these articles that were published and these interviews with Geraldine, does she mention her connection with the Ramseys.
Oh.
It's interesting that, like, even in the article, A Tale of
Let's talk both of them.
A Tale of, two victims, where it's she, like, them talking to it, at no point does she establish also, hey, there's a connection.
I also work for this lady and her husband. Yeah, she never says that.
That leads you to believe that, like, maybe they were fired for a bad reason.
Oh,
that
they didn't want to highlight it.
Known, yeah.
Oh, but also they're talking in the press after that family goes through something. They're like almost keeping their daughter's investigation and their daughter's name alive by almost taking advantage of the spotlight being on the Ramseys without it. You know what I mean? But it's just this one journal that does it, the Camera Eye or whatever. But like, it's maybe when anybody interviewed her after the fact of the murder of JonBenet Ramsey, like, I don't know, maybe it was her. Like, how many times was she maybe trying to talk to the local newspapers or whatever, be like, hey, there's more to this than what the cops are saying. But like, the only time she actually ever got a chance to be printed and have her voice heard or have, any attention was with her bringing up the Ramseys, which maybe, do we know for a fact that she was?
She didn't. That wasn't even in that time period.
She didn't even bring it up.
Not at that time period.
Oh.
But there was also the whole thing where it's really, again, they were not well off. So the next time we see their voice heard is like a little bit of a year after.
Oh my God.
When they're trying to afford a headstone for Lorraine. So that's an interesting point, though. It's a thing of like their voice not being heard, but also it's like, this life of scraping by. Yeah. Try to imagine like trying to fit in the time to think that like, you're going to listen, especially when, your daughter, Geraldine, maybe fell in with the wrong people.
And then fell in the wrong hole.
Yeah, Dom, Geraldine, where it's a thing if you check fraud, you're involved with these criminal communities, and it's like you're falling in with the bad life,
people. They're like, we're going to kill your sister.
Yeah, and Geraldine's maybe got health problems. Yeah, what's up?
I mean, maybe like what if what's her name's sister got murdered or possibly they lived in the same apartment complex as a consequence of her sister's criminal ties or something maybe.
And you know what? That's actually a great segue to our next section of this whole piece.
Is it right?
Yeah, like that's a point I don't actually see a lot of people consider. But when researching this, that's something I thought of where I was like, oh yeah, she lives in that area where it's like,
right.
Yeah, it's a very interesting thing, and she was involved in criminal activity.
Oh.
And so I've seen some fringe Todét people who have proposed that there's a connection between Michael Helgoth, the guy who killed himself,
the guy who worked at the garbage dump.
Yeah. He lived in a trailer park, worked at the salvage yard. He supposedly had a pillow and shot himself in the chest.
Right, on Valentine's Day night.
Yeah. Just after Alex Hunter's press conference that said,
We will find
you. And actually, in relation to this timeline, it was also right after the police article. It was 2 days after the police article came out in regards to this case that said they are still investigating this and they're waiting for the CBI lab reports to come back. But for now, we agree with the coroner.
Oh my God.
And then there's no real printed thing that shows the resolution of this case. But then 2 days later, Michael Helgoth supposedly kills himself or shoots himself.
Or gets a staged death of some sort.
It's I'll have some footage
his
of
coworker going to his house after and robbing it of boots and things. And
Right, exactly. Because Michael Tracy did this follow-up documentary to like Who Killed JonBenet, his like 1998 one.
Really?
He actually made like 3 parts to it because they were only sold to British media because it was an ongoing investigation in the U.S. at the time. So
and he had a British accent, so he was British people, Donna.
He teamed up to this documentarian guy, David Mills, who was willing to do it, but he hated that they ended up with the titles that they did because like the next one was like Who Killed the Pageant Queen.
Oh my God.
And then there was one that they did that basically said a certain suspect did it, where they're like, we got this guy who, this is a prime suspect. This is like breaking news, and they've disappeared.
Oh my God.
Before they said, oh wow.
Mm-hmm. And so this Helgoth connection is actually found through this mystery man in this documentary.
In this British documentary?
A lot of the fringe IDI people believe there's a man. His name is Stephen Gigax.
Stephen Gigax. Stephen Gigax.
Gigax.
Wow.
It reminds me of Daxus, like where you like your last name's
lots
already,
of X's.
It's already a nickname.
Yeah, reminds me of the bad guy from Goli.
It's a very notable name. So if you're going to be involved in, criminal things, it's very
Dixex?
But there was again, I've seen a lot of people on the Todét boards talking about like, oh, there was this connection with Helgoth, and I found there's this Facebook post from August of 2020. Of this person that runs this group, this Facebook group, JonBenet Ramsey Super Sleuths.
Oh wow, they're the experts.
And that was the name of their account too, which is really interesting. But they say, John Kennedy and I learned that this murder, and they're talking about Lorraine Lawrence, was likely a case of mistaken identity, and we came to believe that she was killed by a suspect in the Ramsey case.
What?
His name is Gigax. The source told us she was dating him and cheating on him with Lorraine's male roommate. She said that Gigax thought Lorraine was her and that he beat her up. He has a history of violence and drugs. I also believe he could be the killer of Helgoth, but neither had anything to do with the Ramsey case, just my opinion. I think he likely killed Helgoth for stepping on his drug territory. Sources told us that there was China white heroin found in a safe behind a painting at Helgoth's home after the crime scene was cleared. Which sounds suspiciously like after the crime scene was cleared, but is this when John Kennedy, the friend, broke in?
Oh.
Did John Kennedy find
he was trying to
is
find...
he the insider for the China white heroin where it's like
Chinese white
It's interesting
heroin.
that this person's friends with them. Gigax told his wife's cousin that he was going to get some China white around the same time frame that Helgoth was killed. He claimed to have moved to Indiana by this time, but he was in Boulder and the cousin can verify that. He tried to kill his wife in August of 1996 on their way to move to Indiana. She hid in a drainage ditch for hours until he left, and she still remains in that same town and state to this day. Gigax's wife told me he had no interest in little girls' bondage asphyxia, but he was violent, and she said he had killed before. She said it was always over drug deals. Allegedly, Helgoth's aunt and uncle were dealing drugs with Gigax through their auto salvage yard. They were welding drugs into gas tanks and wheel wells off junk cars, and Gigax was the transporter. I heard this from 2 different sources. Helgoth's aunt told me the family believes he was killed, but the family won't reopen the case. I imagine they don't want to be investigated for their part in any illegal activity.
Oh my God.
And again,
a heroin drug ring?
That's just some speculation off a random Facebook thing with somebody who seems to have inside information with John Kennedy, which we all know that, again, this guy is a guy who broke into Michael Helgoth's apartment to steal his boots to give to Ramsey private investigators Ollie Gray so they could have it be tested. And Ollie Gray still disputes how they tested it, where he's like, oh, they tested it and they're not the same. And he's like, well, how did they test it? When again, Burke already admitted to owning the same exact type of boots because there was a boot print found by a body. It's,
Wow.
But that's all speculation. But so Michael Tracy in this documentary didn't actually name this guy. He redacted some police reports, but somebody looked up the case number on one of the files that was shown and they immediately found out it was him. And we've talked about it before. Trisha Griffiths, who started the web sleuths, she used to run the Forums for Justice. And then she started the web sleuths with the proper spelling, 1B.
Oh, that's right.
Not 2
How
Bs.
people spell web.
Like the internet, not a web reference.
The way that the entire world spells website.
Right.
Is with a web, with 1B.
So she ended up getting interviewed for Geraldo, as well as Stephen Gigax, in an effort to clear his name.
While many are breathlessly following the news about John Mark Carr's first courtroom appearance, we have been investigating the man behind Carr's Bangkok arrest, and we've uncovered something that we feel is deeply disturbing. Laura Engel has our exclusive investigative report.
Michael Tracy is the University of Colorado professor and documentarian who brought John Mark Carr to the attention of the Boulder District Attorney. But now, startling revelations that this is not the first prime suspect that Michael Tracy has named.
I started getting these weird emails saying, did you know that you're being named as a suspect in the JonBenet Ramsey murder case?
In a world exclusive, meet Steve Gigax, the man who Michael Tracy first claimed killed JonBenet Ramsey.
Did you have anything to do with the murder of JonBenet Ramsey?
No, I did not.
She has blonde hair, green eyes.
Michael Tracy made these apparently untrue claims in this 2004 documentary he co-produced called Who Killed the Beauty Queen? The Prime Suspect.
Here we go. Michael Tracy's at it again.
These are disturbing facts about the respected professor, facts that could cast even more doubt on the validity of the case against John Mark Carr.
He has been known in the past to produce out-and-out lies about supposed prime suspects in the case that were not prime suspects at all. Thanks a lot.
Trisha Griffith runs Forums for Justice, an online JonBenet Ramsey blog based in Salt Lake City. Griffith says she was the first to scrutinize the accusations made by Michael Tracy in his 2004 documentary, which was broadcast in Britain.
In this documentary, he talks about this prime suspect who's a very dangerous man.
The documentary shows a document on screen purported to be a police record of this prime suspect with his name and address blacked out. But an alert viewer in Scotland took a screenshot of a case number in the corner of the police document and sent it to Griffith. Griffith did some online research and found that the document corresponded to a person named John Stephen Gigax. The documentary called this suspect a man, quote, who has since disappeared. But Griffith says she was able to find his phone number without leaving her chair.
I found John Stephen Gigax with a Google search in a few minutes. So obviously I'm not an investigator and I was able to do it. There is Michael Tracy's first big lie.
Trisha Griffith called Steve Gigax.
It was like a nightmare. This can't be happening. I wanted to get it stopped.
Gigax was no angel. He admits he served time for attempted sexual assault and menacing with a deadly weapon. But he says he's also no killer. And in 2004, he says he called Tom Bennett in the Boulder District Attorney's office to prove he was not even in Boulder at the time of the murder.
And I sent him some records that I had of signed credit card receipts for purchases at Sears at the time. When I've been in Indiana.
Did he tell you you are not a suspect?
He said, don't worry about it, I'm not a suspect. They don't want to talk to me.
Due to a gag order, the district attorney's office is not able to comment on Steve Gigax's story. But Fox News correspondent Carol McKinley, who has covered this case from the beginning, confirms it.
But as far as for the official investigation, he was never a suspect.
When we asked Michael Tracy for a comment on our story, he refused to go on camera for an interview. But he did offer a statement through his spokesperson. Quote, "I'm a great believer in rational debate, not a shouting match on Fox TV. People have every right to disagree with me. I have no problem with that." Still, Steve Gigax tells us there is nothing Michael Tracy could say that would fix the effects of his claims in the 2004 documentary.
People showed up at the house, reporters and all kinds of stuff. I couldn't even go back to work. I just couldn't do it.
So they go on to then point out that like how this was in the height of basically John Mark Carr had just been arrested.
Yeah, yeah. Who was Michael Tracy's spokesperson? Show me the W-2 form. You know what I mean? Like that was Michael Tracy, but it's like more of that bullshit facade shit. And you're like, oh, through his spokesperson. When it's just him going, this is what I wrote.
He was on that Netflix one, kind of a lot.
He gave them a lot of the footage, the archival footage to the Netflix.
At this time, he was still the head of the journal, basically the Colorado, he was the journalism professor at Colorado University.
Yeah. And a former professor of John Andrew Ramsey's, by the way.
Which, by the way, there's some good stuff where we're going to do a whole episode just on Michael Tracy now because there's some good stuff there. But yeah, no, it's very interesting that like,
instead of a separate piece, it's a separate piece of shit.
At the end of this piece, though, they do point out too, the lady was like, this was announced today because this piece was done as John Mark Carr was getting ready for, they were all getting ready for the live, like he was going to go to his court trial.
Yeah.
The whole thing got dropped right before he was going to have his thing in court.
Wow.
So they didn't have the evidence.
And now
that was like then and there.
And now it's like Michael Tracy having a documentary that has this file with this name blacked out that these people were able to just do a quick Google search and figure out who it was and how to reach the guy. And that guy's going, listen, I've done some bad things, but I never killed nobody, and I definitely am not a suspect in JonBenet Ramsey.
You're 3 parts into this document or this series.
3 parts into the series.
You know it's just going to be over in Britain, where now you're just getting lazy, and you're like, whatever, it's over in Britain, and like then some guy from Scotland, which. I hope Scottish Rabbit, great
Scottish
Patreon
Rabbit, please
member.
find out who the Scottish person
we
was
got
so we can
fans
thank
all
them
over
with
the
a full
continent.
massage.
So
maybe it was Scottish Rabbit.
And I love that a fan then, like, looked in the case number, sent it to Trisha. She sleuthed it.
She figured it out.
And then, alerted this guy and found him.
Yeah,
too,
found him
like,
easy.
hey, exactly.
Where they're claiming, he disappeared forever.
He disappeared, yeah.
And that's the same fucking bullshit formula that Netflix documentary did, where it's 3 episodes, and by the 3rd installment, they're trying to make it sound like, there is a likelihood that exists that there's this one culprit. And for them, they did it with Gigax guy, and with Netflix, they did it with John Mark Carr, who's also the co-subject of this thing, because he literally just had all of his charges dropped, because there's no fucking evidence. And it's like just goes. I mean, it's the parallelism is astounding, but also so is like the nuclear half-life of a lie, and the fact that they're like, first we got 8 years out of this one, and then when we bring it back, we're gonna get 4 years out of it. You know what I mean? And then 2 years when we bring it back, another decade. But they just go through this carousel ride of different fucking things, and they're not even trying to be good at it or be inventive with it. They just do the same shit. But
to be devil's advocate, some of these intruder did it people really like this guy as a suspect. So you could argue as far as how far they looked into his alibi, where again, he's in that documentary holding like 6 receipts. It seems to just show that he was in Indiana at the time. It's kind of like the John Andrew alibi with the ATM receipts and a movie ticket kind of thing and some fuzzy footage.
Right.
But you could argue how much they looked into it. Because again, this person who seems to have an in with John Kennedy and a lot of these people that believe this, maybe he was involved in this Lorraine Lawrence thing, seems to suggest that, that he was lying about, when he left kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, I have to ask myself about this, this post that was on
And then
Facebook.
he's killed before. Sorry.
Yeah. No, fine. But when I, with this post that's on a Facebook, this guy purporting to do stuff with John Kennedy's been interviewed. How come John Kennedy has never brought up any of this in any of the chances when he has been featured?
Because again, like this person who seems to have an insider track seems to think that they aren't related to the Ramsey murder. which seems to be why they're almost protecting Kennedy, because Kennedy worked at this salvage yard that apparently Gigax also worked at. So it's a thing of
with Helgoth?
With Helgoth, yes. Oh wow. So it's a thing of maybe he doesn't want to implicate himself again, knowing about the China White that we were just talking about.
China White heroin thing.
Where you can maybe help out. Oh, I can get a reward for reporting the Ramsey case on this dead guy.
I see.
Because I helped set up this, or somebody already knows somebody set up a crime scene to look like it, but they didn't know the guy had a bunch of heroin, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, it's them saying that he's killed before. And then it was always over drug deals.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. And that,
And that
allegedly
he
they were
killed
dealing
Michael
drugs.
Helgoth.
Yeah, with his aunt and uncle through the salvage yard. They were welding drugs. That's big time stuff.
And then he killed what's her name? Badario? Lorraine Lawrence.
Yeah,
he killed
saying
her.
that accidentally. It's very.
And a case of mistaken identity, but mistaking her with who? Her sister?
Apparently, that Lorraine, his girlfriend was cheating on him with Lorraine's roommate.
Oh, and he killed Lorraine instead of his girlfriend?
Apparently. Is this person's, whatever theory.
So
because I've seen it come up so many times saying the Michael Helgoth thing, and I've never seen anybody cite the connection between Helgoth and this case and Gigax. So I wanted to find it for this. So it's very loose, but it's something interesting to think about, especially when it involves some sort of drug deals.
Yeah.
Because that's very much going to factor into our final section here.
Oh. Yeah, wow. I mean, I've seen so much Sopranos. I know that anybody who's got like a car, auto body shop, or like a
Salvage
junkyard,
yard?
salvage yard. There's drugs going on there. Tony Soprano, waste management,
and great, body disposal.
Oh my God, yeah, absolutely. I mean, they've been doing it in movies forever because that's what they do in real life.
So, again, speaking of drug operations, we're gonna move on to 2013.
Okay.
Basically, the Boulder Police and the Longmont Sheriff's Office had started a thing called Operation Bad Nickname.
Operation Bad Nickname. Oh my God, that's so funny. They called it up. See, who said that they don't not got no sense? They told me. Who me?
This was reported from Westward, the other great publication located in Boulder. White Trash, Stacker, Kid Rock. These are just some of the monikers that inspired law enforcement trying to bust a northern Colorado meth ring to brand their efforts Operation Bad Nickname. The two-faced sweep is still seeking 10 suspects at this writing, including White Trash and Stacker. Their real names haven't been made public yet. But Kid Rock, Colorado's version anyway, is in custody along with around 20 of his alleged cohorts in a scheme that's already included seizure of meth worth at least $250,000.
Oh shit, what the fuck? That's a ton of money, Bobby.
According to Longmont Police Commander Jeff Satter, the operation got underway about 6 months ago. We were on wiretaps for about 2 months to build a case to the point where we can get a wiretap, which is one of the most intrusive warrants out there. The courts require you to do a lot of things and eliminate a lot of other options before you can go that way. Wow. And once we did, we were able to listen to the phone calls and run out all the deals.
Oh my God.
The investigation established the ringleaders as Michael Kaiser, he's Kid Rock, Geraldine Vodicka.
Oh my God.
AKA Dom, Kaiser's wife. Ray Nieto, Richard Mora, Jose Aya, and Terry Bridge Romero. The group was targeted and bust earlier this month, and Romero definitely didn't go quiet.
Oh my God. Geraldine Vodicka, aka Dom, she's Kaiser's wife, aka Kid Rock, and she was one of the suspects in this meth ring that is raking in millions of dollars, probably.
Exactly. They said they were doing a lot of big meth deals. They were doing 1 pound deals, 2 pound deals, 3 pound deals.
3 pound deals?
At one stop we did, we recovered about 3.5 pounds of meth, which could go for somewhere in the $250,000 range, depending on how it's cut.
Oh my God. Wow. Thank God they got that meth out of there and they had that investigation and they had enough evidence to get a wiretap, and someone apparently had a wiretap for a couple months.
And we should clarify the Geraldine Vodicka, this is Dom, the daughter. So
That's
we'll just
call
it
Geraldine, the other Geraldine.
Yeah, we'll just call it Dom from here on out because that's her real name. But when she gets busted for stuff,
she uses her mother's.
She goes by
the name she shares with her mother. Oh,
so she's already
the media gives that to her because it's like you don't necessarily get to choose as like a criminal what you want to be known as in a news article about you, but it's like the police are referring to her as Geraldine.
So it's unclear how she gets out of this whole ordeal.
Yeah, oh my gosh, she didn't get arrested?
Well, she got set at a bond at like half of what the more serious charges were set at.
Oh.
It was like $500,000.
Wow. So she got caught in a drug bust in 2013 called Operation Bad Nicknames.
Mm-hmm. And again, the Longmont commander, he said, this is one of the largest cases we've ever investigated. The amount of meth we know they were moving in this area was substantial.
Wow.
This is 2013. I feel like Breaking Bad had started, so.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it was inspired by this. And substantial for our listeners, substantial is a lot. That's a word. I learned that word the other day. Substantial. Mm-hmm.
Substantial?
Yeah.
Look at you, buddy.
I was on the phone with my mom.
Can you spell it?
She's over in South Spin Bend, and she said you are a substantial drain on my life force.
Oh.
I was like, substantials.
Did you guys ever go back to the terrible thing she said?
Oh, no.
You just focused on the word. Well, you learned a new word at least.
Sometimes as a mother, you got to teach people the worst things so they didn't know what's better.
Jesus.
And that's sometimes the hardest love. It's the hardest love.
What did you teach her?
What did I teach my mother?
She said something terrible to you and you ignored it and focused on the fact that you didn't know what substantial.
And your mother never says no terrible about you.
No, she's never told me that I was a substantial drain on her life force.
Oh, well, maybe you got to work a little harder then.
People express things differently.
Are you even talking to your mother, Bobby?
What?
I'm curious about you.
What'd you ask me?
You don't talk about your personal life, none.
Yeah, because this is a JonBenet podcast.
When did you last talk to your mother?
Huh?
When did you last talk to your mom, Bobby?
I saw my mother yesterday.
Oh.
Jesus Christ. Can we move on, please?
Oh, okay.
We're hitting the home stretch here. So 2013, Geraldine gets busted in this whole meth ring thing.
Yeah.
All right. Well, then we move on to 2018. And the same exact people launch a operation called Operation Misfire.
Operation Misfire?
Operation Misfire.
They are so funny with their names of these operations.
They try to be.
I mean, the regular Louis C.K.
I don't actually think they explained the naming for this one. But the Boulder Daily Camera reported on this one. They said it started with a single suspect. From there, Longmont police found a web of people alleged to be involved in an operation that was allegedly peddling large quantities of meth, fentanyl, and prescription pills from Fort Collins to Denver.
Wow.
This same organization would also have been found to have numerous weapons in their possession.
Oh my God.
So again, this is 2018 now. This is 5 years after.
5 years after 2013.
They started the bust, okay? Police began investigating late last year, naming the project Operation Misfire. Authorities' efforts culminated in July when Longmont police were able to arrest 23 people suspected of helping a drug operation peddle quantities of meth, fentanyl, and prescription drugs from Fort Collins to Denver.
Wow. A pill ring, a meth ring, a bunch of people. 5 years later, there's a whole nother ring that is also then intercepted, a bust, and a lot of people get arrested.
How many rings are there?
That's a good question.
Right?
Some people say 7. Some people.
It's interesting. This highlights that on September 4th, the Longmont Police Department's Special Enforcement Unit, which headed the operation, was awarded with the Regional Vice President's Award for the bust by the Colorado Drug Investigators Association, a nonprofit fraternal organization comprised of law enforcement, correction officers, and prosecutors. And it said, while it is not the Longmont agency's first award for a drug bust, Longmont Police Sergeant Paul Campbell said the award was very meaningful. Because, again, these same people busted a ring before. And guess what? In this whole, ring of, people that were busted up, the only same constant is Dom Vodicka.
What? The only constant?
She gets the girl who was also arrested in the 2013 one.
She was arrested in that 2018 one?
2013 one, 5 years prior.
And then that 2018 one.
And then
5 years later.
They started investigating in 2018. They didn't start nabbing people until about 2019, 2020.
Oh.
She was part of it.
She was the only one who's part of both of them. She's in 2 of them. 2 of 2.
Wait, so what?
Wow.
The second time.
That's crazy.
So, Longmont police were able to arrange an undercover purchase from Joshua Ward earlier this year. Ward had popped up on the police radar, but Campbell did not say how. Police interest, however, was piqued, he said. According to Campbell, Ward had been involved in a prior investigation and was recognized by police. Campbell said police quickly realized that Ward's distribution efforts could be something larger. He led us to what turned into Operation Misfire, Campbell said. When we saw what he was doing, we had a good indication that he was back in the game, so to speak, dealing narcotics. And I looked it up, and that guy wasn't in the first one, though. Before Operation Misfire, Ward had been convicted of controlled substance possession, contraband possession, tampering with physical evidence, theft, and traffic violations. Through their efforts, local, state, and federal law enforcement officers identified more than 50 involved parties and possible co-conspirators. They seized 1,472 counterfeit 30 milligram oxycodone hydrochloride pills, also known as fentanyl, 3 pounds of meth, 1.64 pounds of ephedrine, 288 Schedule II synthetic opioid pills, 18.7 grams of cocaine, 6.7 grams of heroin, and 10 benzo pills, according to a news release from the Longmont Police.
Holy fuck.
They found some handguns and rifles too, and a shotgun, and they had a bunch of ghost guns as well that didn't have any serial numbers on them.
Wow. So this guy that they were like, oh, this guy's been charged with things that are related to being part of some kind of drug scheme, whatever fuck. He seems like he's doing it again, and they followed that. They like tugged on that string, and then they stumbled upon this whole drug ring that's handling all these things like fentanyl and meth and pills, and then it leads to them uncovering this ring that they do Operation Misfire with, which has.
And then here's picture. Here's the picture of all the people too for you.
Let me show you. Which one's the girl? The
right
Dom. Oh wow! Look at her.
Right there.
Wow.
And this is the ring of. But there's so many other people that got arrested too.
Bunch of white people, white-looking people.
And they're looking at like 90 charges if they don't make some sort of plea deal. The suspects arrested in connection with the operation are still involved in the judicial process. Many face judges of charges, including violations of Colorado Organized Crime Control Act. Because they try to do a thing where they want to try all these people at the exact same time, which they end up doing.
Oh.
Where they get everybody to do it. 2 of the suspects listed in the case have since died.
Oh.
Stephen Lucero, 41, who was arrested on suspicion of conspiracy to commit possession of a controlled substance, died in a fatal motorcycle and flatbed truck crash July 15.
Horrible.
They said it's policy to dismiss and close cases when the defendant dies. The other one was Michael Courtney, 44, of Loveland. He died in August 6 in an apparent suicide at the Boulder County Jail.
What?
Some inmate woke up the guards around 7 to say that, like, oh,
he killed himself.
They also reported that, like, he didn't seem despondent or upset. Or
like he would have been
that.
even in a state contemplating
Right.
it. Wow.
The guy that ran the whole thing, supposedly ran the whole thing, ended up making a deal with him, and he ended up getting like 28 years.
Wow.
Then they ended up, it was finally not officially done, but the last time they really reported on it was when Sonia, this lady right here.
Wow. Oh my God.
For those of you listening to this woman is absolutely beat to shit.
What in the Exorcist? William Christ
Suspect
fighting?
in Longmont Operation Misfire found after failing to appear for court since August. This is in 2021. They had been looking for this lady for a long time, and right before she's apprehended, that's how she ends up going in. Right before she's finally apprehended.
She looks beat the hell up, just like what's her name was found in that hole in that construction site. I'm just saying.
Exactly.
Just saying.
Exactly.
Teddy's just saying. Teddy's just saying.
That's perfect.
Wow.
So it was the thing of she was finally arrested, and again, other people had made deals. I think the most again was that one guy for 28. But then it begs the question of what ended up happening to Dom,
Geraldine Dom, because
she shows back up, in 2023 where she makes a GoFundMe for her mother.
Okay.
The one that was the actual housekeeper.
Yeah, of the Ramseys.
Mm-hmm. Geraldine.
Oh goodness.
Yeah, Yeah, there's always that family member that's like, should we take a photo of them and share it? Where it's like, oh no, don't please. Funeral or like one of these.
They do like the devil horns, like throwing the pink one in the stink or something like that.
It's like some passive aggressive
postcard. Is she dead in that photo?
Wish you were here.
Right.
She looks dead in that picture.
She's definitely in hospice.
It says they're basically
put flowers on her.
They were preparing to do the hi, my name is Dominique. By the way, not using Geraldine as she goes by. Chad and I are doing a fundraiser for our mother, Geraldine Vodicka. Geraldine has raised Chad, her grandson, since he was a little guy. Geraldine Vodicka is a Boulder native who has worked hard her whole life. Unfortunately, my mom has been battling kidney disease for the last year and a half. We are trying to do a funeral arrangements, and it's in the ballpark of $17,000, which we do not have. Anything would be appreciated so we can give a proper burial and get her a proper casket. I find it crazy that somebody who's worked in Boulder County, been a tax-paying citizzen, only qualifies for $1,500 of help from the state. Her hard work alone deserves more than that.
I mean, no lies stated, right?
Right. But this is 2023, and R.I.P. Geraldine.
Yeah,
you
Geraldine.
seem like a good person.
You cleaned your house is so good.
Dom's out. There's not,
She's not in prison.
There's no, 30 years.
She was. She didn't get no 24-year plea deal. She didn't get no 90 years. She's out there living with, in communication with her son, making GoFundMes for her mom. And
which, again,
how do you get that?
Just through the short straw too in life, and so, but
how do you get away with not going to jail when you're part of this Operation Misfire, and you are also the only constant with Operation Bad Nickname?
So obviously,
she could be,
maybe,
might be an informant.
Well, okay, yeah, but maybe we don't blow that on a podcast.
Well, we just did.
Well, I'm sure she won't listen to this. So, but it's just interesting, with the
maybe she will. Maybe she will.
But it's a thing with this whole. We know now that there's these big meth rings operating in town at the time. So it's like, what are you guys' thoughts? Because conspiracy wise, we have talked before about Dr. Beef's pill mill.
Oh yeah,
and stuff where maybe Patsy was organizing a lot of these events to sell to the mothers.
Maybe these fundraisers
like
are their own upper class, crustless sandwich sort of party garden variety kind of version of a meth ring. Is the fact that why did JonBenet go to the pediatrician so many damn times? Why did that pediatrician, after JonBenet's death, why was he attending an adult, Patsy Ramsey, who was not his patient, and giving her painkillers and shit?
And making sure that he's saying there was no signs of sexual abuse, because if there was, and I noticed that, I would have lost my license. Not that you should have been checking there anyways. Then also he has an incident later on where JonBenet's medical records supposedly get stolen out of a file. Yeah, so
wow,
it's just a whole.
I mean, it's just it could. These kinds of drug rings occur in that city, and there's a lot of things that are more than meets the eye, like Transformers. Once you kind of scratch beneath the surface. And one could look at a lot of things like fundraisers. Fundraisers are basically really rich people, parties. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's just sometimes it's just, put it on the calendar, blah, 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 blah.
But why does Boulder, it seems, to turn a blind eye to a lot of this? These two busts were, again, the Longmont County sheriffs.
Yeah,
that were busting these people. Some of Longmont County. Longmont's right outside. It's not even it's a 20-minute drive maybe.
Yeah,
it's maybe 8 or 10, something like that. But it's why a Boulder not going after these people. It's these other people that are busting these rings within there, and then when one of the people is detained in your jail, he hangs himself.
I mean, and no one saw it. Nobody heard him.
We got meth rings operating in your town, and there's 2 murders.
Right?
Oh, I'm sorry, 1. But 2 in 95, and that's somebody's turning a blind eye to
and to have this possible, at least a Venn diagram overlapping where there's the former Ramsey housekeeper's daughter who may have been killed in a case of mistaken identity or whatever, according to this one poster, but it involves this guy named Nax or whatever, who also happens to be connected in some way, according to this person, to Michael Helgoth's suicide that always raised eyebrows, where he was, shot himself through his stomach in a pillow. And then also the fact that that guy has a reputation of never killing people for except unless it's about money, it's a drug deal. And then there might be this Chinese white heroin in Michael Helgoth's thingamajiggy. And it's just maybe the drug ring, in some ways has connections, or this is just hypothetical, but watch a Ben Affleck movie for fuck's sake, of someone is on the take in the police department, and they will change or direct even maybe the coroner to make something that is quite clearly, for the fact of the matter that most of the time when you are a few, maybe 100 yards from your apartment, and you're underneath some fucking fiberboard in a hole on a construction site with your teeth knocked out of your head and your head bruised and your eyes, bleeding and shit, and you're dead and it happens in the middle of the winter night in December's, and for most, how many times are people accidentally dying that way? That's the sign or hallmarks of someone being beat to shit to fucking death.
It happened again last year, actually.
What?
At a construction site, a 15-year-old girl was found, beaten at a construction site.
In Boulder?
In Boulder. And I actually looked at the map, and it's right up the road.
Oh my God.
You don't even have to leave the same road to find this is where the original Lorraine.
Oh my God.
But for some reason, this one was transferred over to the CU police, Colorado University.
Interesting.
And
That's
it doesn't
weird.
really,
It's clearly in Boulder. But look at that.
Move it to like
But I'm sorry, keep going.
No,
That's
just,
good.
I mean, that is devastating. That poor 15-year-old girl. I mean, her beaten body found in another construction site. And I mean, again, yeah, these kinds of worlds, this seedy underworld, like, people need to step out of their comfort zone and recognize that there's real evil that exists in this world. And these people do not lose sleep. This is their lifestyle. This is, their turn to turn the crank of a constant, darkness that has created this Mendicant battle of light versus dark for the existence of the universe, and even just in our light and shadow parts of ourselves, expressed and reflected in these compound collective ways that are just sheer brutality. And the brutality, the cruelty, is the business. It's how the gears turn in those machines, and it's not an outlier. It's not, oh God, the first time I ever had, I'm Tom Hanks and I've got a gun in my hand and I'm juggling it because, oh my God, it's hot and I've never pulled a trigger before. No, these people are not good. They are evil. This is what they eat for breakfast.
The one I want to talk about, too, is like the coroner, where it's like, can you imagine a coroner with a God complex?
Oh my God.
Like, as a thing of
Yeah,
how much
absolutely.
it's like, an official word where you can decide whether or not the police are going to want to investigate this more, or whether or not you can decide whether or not
You could pay off a coroner and they'll do the thing. That could be it too.
Exactly. And that's a whole.
If I was killing people, I wouldn't have the coroner on the payroll.
And all it is like you gotta, in the compartmentalization of knowledge, all it takes is somebody that was corrupt to the police department to go down to them, offer them something like, hey, we just, because of something, we need you to say this. Yeah, no problem. Team player, thank you for coming down finally. I love it when I talk to you guys. I don't get to talk to real people. Oh, you're leaving. Okay. Kind of thing. But that's what I'm saying. Like, it comes down to like the coroner ruling this kind of stuff. And there's something weird with Boulder. The image, the two murders, and it's like, maybe it's not a thing you should boast about. Maybe it's a thing you should be.
There's something when it's like, 2 out of 2 of the, the events for one to look at, because a lot of times with like studies or, any sort of research study or like some kind of abstract or whatever, you want to have like some kind of control. You have to have some kind of parameters. And it's very easy for one to go, okay, in this year, here are 2 deaths that happened weeks apart from each other that also incidentally are, a couple degrees of separation, Kevin Bacon butthole away from each other. And then also like the dichotomy, the difference in how they've been treated and how also the Boulder Police Department, like maybe even in them having control of the one, maybe then it's like, okay, with this other one, we know what we need to control that. And dare I say, almost on the part of the Ramseys, because what if Patsy Ramsey's pill ring that is alleged? That is not, that we're not saying that's what happened.
No.
But if there's a, maybe, help explain why they, brought JonBenet to the pediatrician, for appointments like 30 fucking times over 2 years. Is,
That's a lot.
Think of a P.T. Anderson movie. Put a fucking
Which would
funky,
explain and give
put
the
a funky
conspiracy of
70s
silence
song behind it.
with the neighbors that aren't talking, where like all the wives were involved in.
Maybe
pills.
they're all, while their kids are fucking finger painting turkeys with fucking glue sticks, they're just putting pills in their purses and then distributing them however the fuck they need to, because it's a whole nother fucking, sub economy.
You got free range. We know from Steve Thomas's book, where he's even said, this is a guy was a Boulder detective, that it was like, it was clear they were not interested in going after like prostitution rings and pimps and stuff like that and big drug dealers. They were more interested in ticketing college students, which now that like the Colorado University police are investigating some sort of murder, I'm wondering if that existed at the time, where it's like, why weren't they the ones in charge of ticketing?
I mean, what's
college?
going on here?
Like, I get it's probably a college town, but still, that's the thing where Steve has, talked about the history of
that they do not go after actually closing the cases. They were like, you're working too hard, Steve.
Hunter doesn't prosecute anything.
And you got Hunter on the record, or at least on Steve's record later on, going, there's a political decision, even when it comes down to a little girl's murder.
Exactly.
But also here you have the Ramsey case where, and this is where I'm just going to throw this out there. What if the Ramseys? What if in this universe of animated cool world sort of like sleaze and
drug dealing,
you get the police managed to cover up one completely obvious murder and say it was suicide, and then this maybe
accident, not suicide,
or accident. And then what if a little girl died? What if in a town somewhere a little girl died as a result of a kidnapping attempt that was from some people of this seedy drug ring that wanted to send a message, and maybe it went wrong or whatever, and then the police department that would be in on the take and corruption and aiding and abetting, covering up the murders of people in that, related to that world, wanted to pin this on the parents so badly so that they could cease any sort of attention to something because that's what they're getting paid to do. And I'm not saying that's not necessarily what I believe.
But yeah, I mean, because also in the instance, like if there was, say we entertain the scenario where there was these people coming in and maybe it was related to some sort of drug thing.
Yeah.
They left a note maybe that would be exposing Patsy's drug activity. Maybe it was a different note, which is why you still want to leave the scene as the same, knowing, because we talked about this in the other episodes where it's like they staged it hoping that they would still be able to check the scene and find the actual real people, which is why they're hoping the DNA. So what if it was so damning that it was like, we have to rewrite the note and it was related to something like that? Because it's either way she wrote the note. Oh my God.
I mean, I'm willing to chew on that. I mean, you know,
in the safe. They had a safe in the cellar, in the wine room.
In the wine room?
The floor safe.
The Ramsey.
We've talked about it before, that John he's glossed it over as like, yeah, we didn't even use it kind of thing. But does a, nanny's daughter who maybe helps out over the house that's a criminal know that? Is it maybe these people know that these rich people who are now appearing, because these guys are not checking the papers because the sister and friend Lorraine is in there, and it's like, oh, they're saying it was an accident, and then the next day, oh, this $1 billion company.
And it's like, who's the CEO of a $1 billion company in this town? Oh, the Ramseys.
I know where his
floor
that house safe is.
There's a safe in the wine room.
Right, obviously.
So
we can't ignore the criminal underworld influence when in any sort of city or town where then other like irregular, violent, crimes occur. When they do occur, one has to at least, rub penises together. Rub two Brillo pads against each other.
That's what we're doing.
Of do these worlds engage with one another. And this is where our natural curiosities has led us, based off this information that Bobby's presented, that I've never really ever thought about.
I'm glad.
It makes me ponder.
But we're still entertaining. I'm not saying I fully believe this.
No.
But like, it's like something that I've never heard this before.
And at least we should, like in a Patsy full of grace kind of way. What if, she was in bad with these people and it was kind of like almost Euphoria's or something?
Yeah, she couldn't get Dr. Beef that night when she tried to call him 3 times. So I called the housekeeper's daughter.
Oh my God.
Right, I need my fix.
Who knows?
And then
she could have just been like just buying and
it was fronted
from him, but he could have been like a plug and shit. Like, oh my God.
It was fronted, but she didn't pay it yet or something.
Yeah, she's like, oh shit, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
It's some kind of Ozark Laura Linney thing. It's terrifying. They got a bone saws and they killed, and maybe her daughter died as a result. But it's like, maybe it ties into other institutions in that city.
Oh, it could be why Linda Huffman Pugh needed like $2,000.
Yeah. She knows. And maybe Patsy knows.
Where it's also. Like she didn't get the check and it's like, never mind, I got it figured out.
Oh my God.
I talked to the other housekeeper.
yeah. Oh shit.
They paid off my well, I think we did a pretty good unbiased look at this today.
This
was a fascinating corner to investigate. And the pocket ham, it's so good, and sometimes it's like, this is almost like the pocket ham portion of this mystery, where it's like, listen, sometimes you have to defrost it a little, rub it
in your pocket,
in your genitals.
Did you put it in the same pocket as your pocket Pikachu?
Well, actually, it is, Barbie. It is. That's maybe you should check on that thing. But this was delicious to nibble on. It was interesting, just like the Pikachu, to dissect. And as a result, I think we're all better informed, and everyone can agree with me in the comments, about the universe of Boulder, Colorado during this time.
Well, there is more to this.
Oh, yeah, we're going to,
either you believe it's Sesame Street or The Wire, and one answer makes you look like a clueless buffoon.
That was very well said. I think there's nothing else to say. That's good. Thank you guys so much for joining us. I love you guys.
This was a lot of fun. I love you,
join
Bobby.
our Patreon. Yeah, check out the links below.
We got a bunch of things. Support us. Support
We love
yourselves.
you so much. Yeah.
Believe in the light in a forgiving universe.
Oh. Yeah, right. We're not starting a fucking cult. No. Which there were a lot of cults in Boulder, and we're gonna do an episode on that too. So hey, I'm Bobby Pavlovsky.
And I'm Patty. Ronald Reagan used to make yes.
And this is
JonBenet today.
Well, today I peed my pants, and then today I peed my pants.
Right.